Hello everybody, welcome back to Talking Wolves. This is Dave and I'm joined once again with Mr. Alex Goncalves. Alex, how you been?
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me again.
Yeah, perfect. The last time we spoke was all about Mr. Rui Patricio when he was linked to his signing. Obviously, that went through, which we're going to be touching on today. And our first ever interview, Alex, is still the most viewed video on our channel at the moment. So it's always good to get you back on as well. And hopefully, we're going to be talking more throughout the season, maybe, and obviously today about the Portuguese contingent at Wolves. So if you haven't caught the last interview with Alex, we just spoke about everything to do with obviously the Portuguese players. It was really the first season that we had Nuno in, and Wolves really pushed, and obviously we did get promoted in the end. But Alex came on and just really gave his insight on these players that we'd signed, and we even spoke about a few players that could potentially join Wolves. We were going to be speaking about the players that actually did join Wolves in the end. There is one more day left of the transfer window, but signing another Portuguese-based player seems unlikely at the moment, Alex. But we are going to be touching on it. So we spoke about it before. Mr. Rui Patricio ended up signing. Obviously, the saga regarding his contract and so on isn't quite over yet. But, I mean, that signing for Wolves, as it stands as a free transfer, how good do you think that is as a business for Wolves?
Unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah, the Portugal number one, perhaps the greatest goalkeeper Portugal have had since maybe before Vitor Bahia, who was outstanding. A sporting legend, Champions League pedigree, absolutely. Yeah, it's difficult to really say how good this signing is. He's a fantastic shot stopper. He's really good at reading the game, great positional awareness. Just, yeah, phenomenal.
So obviously he was in the Euros for Portugal. Portugal did okay. They probably maybe hoped they could have maybe gone one step further, but they did probably sort of the minimum requirements, I'd imagine, for this World Cup. Patricio at times had a couple of decent saves and so on, decent cameos. Same with Wolves in this pre-season. Do you think it was a good move for him to sort of move on from Portugal, obviously with the whole situation going on at Sporting? Do you think it was the right time for him to move on, and do you think the Premier League's a good place for him to showcase what he's like as a goalkeeper?
It's a tough one, really, because I think everyone that follows Portuguese football probably expected him to move on a lot earlier than he did.
Yeah.
But to a Champions League, an established Champions League side. So it's a great move for Wolves. I think it's brilliant for Rui, though, because he's able to now show his true abilities to a different audience on a separate stage. The Premier League's obviously the place where every player wants to play and test themselves. So I think overall it's going to prove to be an excellent move for both club and player. And obviously with all the Portuguese players around him, he's going to fit in perfectly. It's going to be home from home almost.
Yeah.
So it's ideal for him, and obviously with the events that happened at Sporting, I think it was inevitable that he was going to leave. And the fact that Napoli changed their minds means that Wolves have a fantastic goalkeeper on their hands.
Yeah, perfect. I think I speak for all the Wolves fans, really looking forward to see how he gets on. As we say, so far in pre-season, he's looked very, very good, very solid indeed. We're going to be moving on now. It was a player that obviously was at Wolves on the books last year. I don't think many fans expected the final move to go through, but Wolves did complete the signing, of course, of young wing-back Ruben Vinagre. We touched on him last time on the interview, and we sort of said how attacking he was and maybe more suited to a more attacking role. But Alex, you watched obviously him a lot this summer for the Portugal youth side, and they obviously went on to win the tournament they were in. What do you think of this signing for Wolves? A massive coup for Wolves. I think the rumoured fee is a lot less than I thought it would be as well. And this guy has a lot of potential, doesn't he?
It's an unbelievable move. I think future Portugal left back for sure. I mean, he was just so confident on the ball. It's unbelievable. His ability to take players on, his confidence to get up and down the wing. He also contributed a fair bit defensively. I think that's the one thing that he does still need to improve. But just the ability he showed on that left side, he was terrorising the right fullback. He really was. It was a pleasure to watch it, and it's an unbelievable bit of business from Wolves to actually pick him out. I can't see why Monaco actually let him go, to be honest, because I think he is a future world beater. I really do. I think he's going to go all the way to the top.
Well, do you think at this age now, do you think he's ready to make the step up to the Premier League, to have regular Premier League football, or do you think Wolves should sort of almost give it him in doses and a few games at a time?
I think he's got the ability to play in the Premier League, and I think the sale of Barry Douglas was, I think, a shock to most people, but it does give that opportunity for Ruben Vinagre to play a lot more regularly. Have a few games in the Premier League, which would be unbelievable. I mean, we've got to remember that he arrived in the Championship with Wolves, having not played a single senior game of football. So it's an unbelievable jump that he's taken in this past season and a half, and I think he's ready. I think the age doesn't really come into it when you have the ability that he does, and I think obviously the defensive side is still a little bit of a problem, but when you've got three centre backs behind you, it gives you that freedom. I think wing back is certainly perfect for him at the moment, rather than a full back. So the Wolves system is ideal for him. And I really am excited to see if he is given the opportunity in the Premier League. It's going to be fantastic.
I think the one time I really had a good eye on him was against Manchester City in the Cup, and obviously we've seen clips of him with his skill against Kyle Walker and so on. But the way Wolves actually set up in that game away at the Etihad was quite defensive. They stayed with the same shape that they did, and of course it was a rotated Wolves team as it was. But with Wolves actually playing quite defensive, which we weren't quite used to, against a much bigger team, Vinagre actually seemed to do quite well with that, with him actually being a little bit deeper, a little bit more disciplined, which I think Wolves will have to do a lot more this season. He seemed to suit it quite well, so it's going to be very, very interesting to see if he does get much time. Obviously, we signed Johnny Castro from Atletico Madrid. There might be one more wing back coming in before the window shuts, who knows, but very, very much one to look out for Ruben Vinagre this season. Next one. I think this time last year, if someone had told me we were going to sign this guy, I'd probably tell him to go back to sleep. But Mr. Joao Moutinho, Alex, again, we just spoke before the call that how quick this one turned around. What a signing for Wolves.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it caught me off guard, I have to say. I mean, we're talking about the third most capped player in the entire history of Portuguese football. Yeah. Only behind, the one and only Cristiano Ronaldo and Luis Figo. He's got 113 caps. I mean, it's unbelievable. He's still somehow only 31. Yeah. He seems to have been around forever, but he's accomplished so much in the game. He is personally one of my favourite players of all time. Just his elegance on the pitch, his passing ability, it's just sensational. And I think what's perhaps even more ridiculous is the fee that's been paid. Yeah. To get someone of his caliber for, I think it was 5 million in the end, is actually beyond belief, to be honest. You can buy very, very little in the footballing world for £5 million in today's market, let alone a European champion who has lifted 9 or 10 major trophies in his career already. It's truly a remarkable bit of business. It's difficult to actually explain just how much of a coup this is. It's fantastic. So
for Wolves fans that aren't too familiar with him, if there is any, what sort of things should they look out for? What is Joao good at? What's he maybe needs? Well, I say improve on, but obviously he's such an accomplished player now. What do you think his key sort of attributes are as a player?
Well, he'll offer an abundance of composure and technical ability in the middle of the park. He's got fantastic passing range, great vision. He'll get others directly involved with chipped through balls and will certainly stretch the opposition defence with great regularity with his over-the-top passes. I mean, he's the type of player that will bring the best out of those around him and will no doubt forge a great partnership with the likes of Diogo Jota and even Cavaleiro on the wings. Always looking to deliver the balls into wide areas. I mean, in many ways, he'll offer similar attributes to Ruben in central midfield. The same vision and creativity. And it's just a fantastic piece of business. I mean, we'll get to see Neves and Moutinho play alongside each other week after week. And few sides in the Premier League will have a better central midfield partnership than Wolves, or certainly one that is that creative.
Do you think that, as you sort of as an outsider, and obviously with the knowledge of the Portuguese football, do you think those two in the middle maybe will get overrun, or do you think they're both capable of playing together and actually sort of dominating games?
Well, I mean, I can see why people are concerned, but I'd have to disagree, to be honest. I mean, there's no destroyer in the midfield that serves the sole purpose of breaking up the play. That's clear, But Neves is a natural defensive midfielder, and Moutinho is incredibly hardworking, very tenacious, and he certainly does his fair share of the ugly stuff as well. He puts in a great defensive shift for his team and is a very accomplished tackler. To be honest, I think it's something of a bit of a disservice to both of them to suggest that they would be dominated in the middle of the park if they played together. I mean, they've got great defensive awareness. They know when and how to put in a defensive shift for the side, and will certainly be invaluable during the transitions from defence to attack. I mean, Moutinho was one of the best players at Portugal at the World Cup. Did an outstanding job defensively when Portugal would sit back and try and grind out the results. And his absence against Uruguay was definitely felt.
So, we're really going to be looking forward to that, and I'm sure plenty of football fans in general, not just Wolves fans, the neutral fans, looking forward to him and Ruben next to each other. We're moving on to the final sort of Portuguese-based or Portugal-based player that Wolves have brought in so far this window. Raul Jimenez, who obviously played for your side that you support, Benfica, Alex.
Yes.
He's coming on loan. There's still plenty of sort of question marks over this one. I think he's actually impressed a little bit during the late pre-season. I think a lot of people were judging him on early World Cup cameos, which he didn't really get a fair chance for Mexico anyway. But I think a lot of fans have sort of warmed to him slightly over the last 2 or 3 pre-season friendlies. And some people are still asking me on Twitter whether I would still sign a striker. And it's an interesting one. Would I sign a striker? Maybe, but do I expect us to? No, because I don't think Raul Jimenez would have left Benfica to be second or third choice at Wolves. But as a player, his qualities and so on, you would have seen him a fair bit over the last year or so. How do you rate Jimenez? How do you think he's going to get on in the Premier League? What's he good at, and so on?
Well, I mean, I'm a big fan of Jimenez. I think he's got some of the great attributes that you want from a striker, and he should fit into Nuno's system and style quite well. I think the goal record is something that people are quite concerned about, and they seem to criticise when they first refer to him, but that is quite misleading because at Benfica he was always utilised as a super sub, and a super sub he definitely was. I mean, he played, I think, on average about 25 to 30 minutes every game. So little time to make an impact, but generally he always came on, always scored or assisted or contributed in some way. So his goals to game ratio is skewed as a result of the minutes he's played in each of the matches. But he's pacey, he's got good technical ability in front of goal, scores with great variety, and he'll drift out wide and link up with the players around him. So, the likes of Jota and Cavaleiro should get good service from him as well. I guess the only issue now is to harness that ability and get him playing to a high standard consistently and for 90 minutes instead of just as a bench player. Because I think both for Mexico and Benfica, he's kind of become accustomed to watching the match from the sidelines for 60 minutes and then just coming on in the last 30. But I think I assume will be Wolves' number 1 striker this season. So he's going to have to try and it's going to take a bit of time, I think, to adjust to that new way of playing.
Well, I think people were impressed with sort of how almost direct he was. He knew almost knew where the goal was. He looked like a very good attacker in what he was doing over the last friendly or so. But it'll be interesting for him. I think with the attacking options Wolves have got, we saw with the front three last year in the Championship how they like to, it's almost like a free roam. They all rotate within each other. We know Diogo Jota can play in that middle role. We know that even Costa Cavaleiro, we've signed obviously Adama Traore. There's a lot of competition for attacking places this year, and any of the forwards, not even just Jota, and any of the forwards have got to be on their A game. Otherwise there's another option definitely in every position for them to take. Obviously Leo Bonatini, who we've spoke about before, he's signed permanently for Wolves now, which was quite an interesting one. So there's plenty of competition, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of places. We'll quickly touch on Roderick Miranda as well, Alex. Obviously we weren't too sure about his Wolves' future. He has actually gone out on loan to Olympiacos in Greece. There was early rumours that he might have even been sent back with how poor he played in pre-season. But I was actually quite surprised that he didn't get moved back to Portugal, Alex. But where do you see him going from here, really, for Olympiacos? Surely he's got no real future at Wolves now.
No, I don't think he has. But this is a fantastic move for him personally, because to go to the best team in Greece, probably, linking up with a fellow Portuguese manager, Pedro Martins, who will know him quite well. Fantastic move for him. And again, if he does somehow manage to find his way and perform to a high standard, playing for Olympiacos on a big stage, he's still got that slight chance of making the Portugal squad one day. It sounds ridiculous. He hasn't performed for so long, but
Yeah.
he keeps getting these second chances. I'm not sure how many more he'll get, but he's really got to take this one with Olympiacos. I was surprised by that move. I think a move back to Portugal at the likes of Guimarães or something would
Yeah.
have been ideal for him in a league that he's accustomed to. He's played in many times, but I'm excited. I'm looking forward to seeing how he manages to do.
I think it was he's definitely got quality there. We saw that last year for Wolves. He's decent on the ball at times, but obviously
Yes.
defensive work in itself has got some question marks. So it's going to be really interesting. It's obviously a big season for him, but I thought we'd touch on that because we have spoken about him before, and I just thought it was quite surprising that he didn't move back to Portugal. But Alex, one last thing. Obviously, I think that have you launched your own website now as well to do with like the Portuguese football?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you
Yes,
wanted to talk
absolutely.
about that, feel free, because obviously
Yeah,
I've
well,
seen that
thank
sort
you.
of stuff on Twitter as well.
Yeah, so Tuga Scouts came about really as a way to kind of create a new platform to spread the wonders of Portuguese football in a bit more detail and to a wider audience, and should hopefully offer some of the latest news stories, some opinion pieces and reviews regarding things relating to Portuguese football, both domestically and abroad. And because it's purely in the English language, it will hopefully open the doors to some people who would typically be deprived of the happenings in the Primeira Liga and the Portuguese national team. And it's a fascinating and very often unexplored footballing region. So I think it's quite nice to be able to offer a way for English people or English speakers to interact with it a bit more. And it's been a fun little project, and hopefully it's just the beginning.
Perfect. I'll make sure I put the links for that in the description down below. Alex's Twitter as well, if you haven't already followed him on there. Plenty of insight. I mean, I only follow you on Twitter, Alex, and it always comes up on my timeline. I always get a chance to read about stuff that I wouldn't have known before anyway. So it was always a good insight. So make sure you check that out.
Brilliant.
And obviously, Alex, I hopefully will speak to you again sometime during the season. And thank you so much for being on Talking Wolves again. Really do appreciate it. Make sure you hit the like button though, guys, if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel. As I say, all our social media links are down in the description down below. And Alex, again,